Hello everyone! In this week's video, I'm going to be creating an animation in Procreate Dreams. Before we jump in, I do want to let you know that I have been sick for the past week, and that is why my voice sounds sick. I am doing better now, but it is still very much in my voice, so sorry about that. But about today's video topic, Procreate Dreams came out recently. If you haven't heard about Procreate Dreams, it is an animation app for Apple devices created by the people who made Procreate. And it has a lot of really neat features. For example, in this footage, I am moving the circle around with my Apple Pencil, and Procreate Dreams is able to record those movements, so it can translate my actions into animations, and I think that's really cool. Because of features like this, I was super excited to try Procreate Dreams. That being said, the process of learning how to use it was a bit rough, so let's jump into how my process went. So to start, I'm actually going to be working in Procreate. You're able to draw directly in Procreate Dreams. However, it is currently missing some useful features for drawing. So I'm going to make my drawing in Procreate and then import it into Dreams. My idea for the animation is that there is a winter fairy in an autumn scene. I'm going to make the elf move a bit, blink, and have her hair blow in the breeze. I'll also have there be leaves falling from the trees, and there will be snow falling. Kind of like the area is going from autumn to winter. My plan is that I will animate this scene kind of like how I animated this picture of Doris in After Effects. I will take pieces of the picture and transform them to add movement, instead of drawing new frames. I did want to make something maybe a bit more complicated and dynamic. However, like I said, I've been sick for the past week, and when I started working on this animation, I wasn't feeling very well, so I decided to keep things simple. And I am glad I did, since learning a new program can also be very tricky. I'm glad I wasn't too ambitious. Speaking of being sick, I usually like to record my iPad screen with my camera. However, I didn't feel well enough to sit at my desk, so I mostly worked on this while resting on the couch or in bed. So for this video, we'll be using screen recorded footage. I had hoped to switch to footage from my camera once we were in Dreams, because I was feeling better when I was working in Dreams. However, there were some complications, and we'll talk about them when we get to that. Oh, also, the pencil I'm using for my drawing is the Bleeding Ballpoint brush from the Brush Galaxy Ballpoint brush set. And they are the sponsors of today's video. Brush Galaxy offers 50,000 Procreate brushes with one subscription. You can access over 20 categories of brushes like watercolor, hair, lettering, and so many more. Around this time of year, maybe you want a snowflake brush. Well, Brush Galaxy has tons of options to choose from. Unlock brushes today by starting your 7-day free trial. There are links in the description and pinned comment below. I really liked using the Bleeding Ballpoint brush for sketching. I really like the texture of it and how it reacts with how I draw. So I recommend checking out this brush pack with your free trial. And thank you so much again to Brush Galaxy for sponsoring this video. As you may be able to tell for this piece, I decided to draw in my Chibi Elf style, since this is an elf character, and a lot of times I find the style to be easier for animating in, since it's more simple. Because I am drawing in my Chibi Elf style, when I was drawing the character, I kept debating about making it be one of my pre-existing elf characters, like Pariah or Silva. However, when I thought of the concept of there being a winter elf in an autumn scene, I decided to draw a character just for this animation. Also, I do want to say that there aren't really elemental elves in Pariah's world, so this elf isn't really canon. There are beings that control the weather, but they aren't elves. The elves mostly handle growing things, and there are subsets of elves, like the royals can use more advanced magic, and the messengers can use magic to deliver messages. However, when it comes to weather conditions, that's not handled by the elves, I think. I'm still in the process of world building. Also, this elf isn't canon because she is the size of a normal human, whereas the elves in Pariah's world are very tiny. I made the elf normal sized for this picture because I wanted to draw the background elements at a normal size, instead of them being super huge. Once my sketch was done, I started the cleanup process. Because I want the character to blink, I had to draw 4 different sets of eyes. One set that was fully open, another that is closing, the third one is closing even more, and then the 4th one is fully closed. Also, since I will be animating by moving the pieces around, I need to make sure to fully draw out the pieces, kind of like I did when I was making my Live 2D model. I need to fully draw the head under the hair I need to make sure to separate the layers properly so everything can be layered correctly, and so on. Also, I'm sorry if my voice is horrible to listen to. It's still really raspy, and I'm trying my best. But once I had the layers outlined, I started coloring. A lot of times I'll fill in the base colors all at once. However, because I needed the different parts to be separated, I filled in one piece at a time. I set my line art as the reference, switch to my coloring layer, and then fill in the base color. Later, once I'm confident that I like the color choices, I'll merge the line art and color into one layer so that they are one piece. For some of the objects, I would have to draw in the gaps with color on the line art layer, and then fill in the area on my coloring layer. I had to do this for a lot of the hair pieces since I didn't fully have line art. Because this is a winter elf, I went with a very blue color scheme. The rest of the picture will be very fall colored, which makes her feel a bit out of place, but that's kind of the point. She's in an area where she maybe doesn't totally belong. Once I'd filled in all the different parts, I started to add some shading to the color layers directly. I am keeping the shading very simple. It's just some cell shading of a slightly darker color applied with a hard-edged brush. Since my body wasn't running at its usual speed, I decided to keep the rendering very simple. Also, I'm probably going to get comments telling me that I should be resting or that I should have taken a break. And I did consider skipping this week's upload. However, even though I was feeling sick, it was kind of nice having something to distract me or to keep my mind moving. Like I've said in the past, I'm kind of a busybody, and I start to feel like I'm going crazy if I do nothing for too long. So having something to work on was kind of nice. So don't worry, I didn't push myself too hard. I made sure to take many breaks and only worked for a little bit at a time. Plus, I was mostly able to work on the couch or in bed since this was on my iPad, so that was nice. Plus, this cold or whatever it is I have definitely isn't fun, but it's not the worst I've ever had. I was still able to walk around and get myself snacks and stuff. I wasn't like bedridden like I have been in the past sometimes. That being said, it has made my asthma act up a lot, and I've had to do so many nebulizer treatments. Anyways, now that the character is done, I can start working on the background elements. I want the elements to extend outside of my work area a bit, so I made my canvas larger and made sure to mark my work area with green. I want the background and foreground elements to go outside of the canvas a bit, so that when I make them sway in the wind, you won't see the cutoff point. For all of the background elements, I'm using the brushes in the organic section. I wasn't worrying too much about detail since I knew I'd be blurring pretty much all of these elements to an extent. Also, I went with a more painty look for the trees and stuff since it's simpler for me to do. When it comes to plants and foliage, it's way easier for me to not do line art and stuff, and instead just make blobs and shapes to give the idea of the foliage. Also, eventually here in the footage, you will see me put some overlay layers on the character, and I was having a hard time trying to figure out how to do this in Procreate. In Clip Studio Paint, I just clip a layer to a folder, but in Procreate, I can't do that. I ended up making a flattened copy of my character and then changing the color of it and setting it to overlay. However, later when I was thinking more about this, I realized that wouldn't really work because then I would need to make the overlay layer move perfectly with the character. But thankfully in Dreams, you can clip a layer to a group. So I'll do that in Dreams to help the character fit into the background. Also, I may release this as a digital live wallpaper. I'm not sure as to where I will make it available. I used to make them available on my website, but I no longer have that since I didn't pay to renew it. I wasn't sure how many people actually checked out my website, so I wasn't sure if it was worth paying for it. Did any of you notice when it went missing sometime last year? Should I put it back up? You can let me know. I could always put all of the live wallpapers I've made up on my shop as a wallpaper pack for like $1 or something. I've made a few live wallpapers at this point. But yeah, I'll try to let you know where you can get this if you want it. Oh, also, I only drew one leaf, but there will be multiple leaves falling. I just only drew this one because I knew I could copy and paste it later. Anyways, now the art is done, and we can try to move it into Dreams. I drag Procreate Dreams from the quick access bar down here, and then make it go into split screen mode so I have both Procreate and Dreams open. I then just drag in my file. It's really easy. However, Procreate Dreams did keep crashing when I tried to do this. Thankfully, even though it was crashing, it did work, so I was really happy about that. I was really scared I wouldn't be able to import this into Dreams. Now at this point, I wanted to move over to footage captured by my camera to more clearly show you Procreate Dreams. However, my camera doesn't like to record dark areas. It tries to automatically balance the light, so then things end up blown out like this. If I switch to drawing mode, then it's fine, because there is more light area to balance things out, but I can't be in drawing mode the whole time. I usually get around this problem with my camera by having apps like Procreate set to light mode. However, Dreams doesn't have a light mode, which makes filming my tablet screen not really possible without it being super blown out. So to my dismay, we have to stick with screen recorded footage. I wanted to be able to show you the hand gestures and stuff, but oh well. Hopefully they will add a light mode in the future. So to start, we have this one track that has my art on it. Now, because we did import this from Procreate, a nifty thing we can do is convert the layers to tracks. This will give each layer from my artwork its own track. They are in the same order, and it even remembered that I had all my character layers grouped together. So that's really nice. Now, the first thing I wanted to try to accomplish is making the character blink. As you can see, I have tracks for all the different eye closing positions. So I basically just need to make those switch out on the timeline and play one after the other. And this should be pretty simple. So to make the eye open layer shorter, I cut it at the point where I want it to switch out, and then I'll make the second part shorter. However, I was having a very hard time changing the length of this clip for some reason, and I want to make it known that I can do it, and you just tap the end of the item on the track and drag it in. It's a really simple motion, but for whatever reason, it kept being very touchy sometimes, and it just wouldn't let me do it. I eventually get the track to be shorter, and now I'm going to make eye 2 switch in. This doesn't need to last for very long, so once again, I will shorten this a lot. I do the same thing with the eye 3 layer and the eye 4 layer. As you can see on the timeline, they are all kind of playing one after the other, and this will make the closing animation. Also, I got a bit confused with the hand gestures for controlling the timeline and zoomed out a lot, and then Procreate Dreams ended up crashing. I don't usually deal with apps crashing on my iPad, but Dreams crashed a good amount of times. Hopefully it gets more stable as updates come out, but my iPad is on the older side as well. It's a 10.2 7th generation, and it's just a normal iPad, so it's not the most fancy of iPads. Anyways, I reopened Dreams and thankfully I remembered everything I did. I wanted to adjust the speed of my closing animation, and for some reason at this part, I could not change the length of the frames. It just did not want to let me. I was looking up tutorials, trying different techniques that I saw other people doing, like holding down your finger on the screen, but eventually I got it to work if I zoomed in a ton on the timeline. It's just my frames were so tiny that I just needed to zoom in a whole bunch, I guess. And sadly at this point, my iPad didn't capture the rest of the blinking process. I was so sad. I was already feeling a bit frustrated with Procreate Dreams. My camera wasn't cooperating with me. I felt sick, and now my iPad was losing footage that I captured. But I kept persevering. So here's how the eye animation plays out. I have the different eye layers switch out and then have them play in reverse so that the eye opens. On this track here, I drew in some skin tone for the eyelids so that the iris and white parts of the eyes get covered when the eyes close. They switch out just like the eyelashes do. I just have them all grouped together to make things cleaner. Another thing I did is I made the eyebrows move up and down when the eyes blink. I did this by placing keyframes. I will show you the keyframe process in a bit with a different item since I didn't get the footage for this part. As you can see, I also made one of the hair strands sway back and forth. I will show you how I did this with the second hair strand. So I go to the track for the second hair strand and press on this. From here, I tap the Move and Scale option. This will make it so I can place keyframes when I move the item from one spot to another, and Procreate will do all of the in-between movements itself. Also, I'm changing where the anchor point is so that it's easier for me to have the hair sway from where it's attached to the head. Next, I tap this corner to make the rotation option appear, and then rotate the hair. And now we have keyframes for the start and end position, so Procreate can make a move in between those 2 points. And I basically just make alternating frames of the hair moving back and forth. One thing I do wish I could do is copy keyframes. Maybe you can, but I couldn't figure out a way to do it. This would make it so much easier to make things move back and forth because I wouldn't have to manually do it for each keyframe, but also it could help me be more precise for when I want things to loop. Like I wanted this animation to loop, but because it was so hard to place the items exactly back to the right spot after I had moved them, I decided to not have it loop. I probably could have figured out a way to make it perfectly line up, but it didn't feel worth the hassle. Hopefully they add a way to copy keyframes in a future update, or I figure out how to do it. Anyways, now both strands move back and forth, and we can go to the bangs. For the strands of hair, I was using the scale and move option, but for the bangs, I'll be using the warp option. I want to make the bangs sway a bit, and to do this, I'll drag the bottom of the warp box over and place a keyframe. When they move to the left, I place another keyframe a bit later and have them move back to the right and repeat. I basically did the same process for the rest of the hair. I just warped the different parts to make them move back and forth. Since it's the same process I did for this bang piece, let's move on to something else. Now a lot of this part didn't get captured sadly, but I added a slight breathing animation to my character by warping her chest to move in and out and also making her move up and down slightly. I found it really interesting how alive the character felt from adding this. I feel like it brought a lot of life to her, and that's really cool. Next, I needed to re-add the overlay layers to make my character fit in. Like I mentioned earlier, I had to get rid of my first ones since they were shaped to the character, and that would be hard to animate exactly with the character's movements. But with Procreate Dreams, I can enter drawing mode and just clip this orange layer to my character group. It's easy peasy. I did the same thing with some soft light. I made sure to use a kind of large brush so that the light was applied a good amount outside of the character. That way when the layers slightly move, they'll just move into the light a little bit more and it won't get a weird cutoff point or anything. Oh, and I wanted the rays of light that are shining through the trees to kind of fade in and out a bit. So I go to the opacity option and then place keyframes to have the opacity get lower or higher in a kind of alternating fashion. Next was making the background and foreground elements move. I'll be using a variety of rotating and warping to make different items sway. I do have to say, I do like Procreate Dreams and the concept of it, but it does feel like it needs some work, and I wouldn't say it's beginner friendly. There are no in-app tutorials, and Procreate Dreams doesn't tell you how to get started or really guide you at all. It just kind of drops you in without telling you anything. Thankfully, people were making tutorials really quickly for it on social media. If it weren't for those, I would have been like 10 times more confused. Dreams is really confusing because there are a lot of features kind of hidden behind random areas. Like if you tap the numbers in the corner of the workspace, you can find extra things like onion skins. Once you know they are there, it's not really a bad spot for them, but I would never think to tap this spot to find onion skins. Or like you can use a 4-finger hand gesture to preview your animation in full screen, but how am I supposed to know that tapping the screen with 4 fingers does that? And it seems to be the only way to do it. There's not like a secondary button or anything. Some things I hope that Dreams adds in the future is a selection tool. For some reason there isn't one, and the selection tool is super helpful. Another thing is that I wish Dreams did the thing that Procreate does, where if you draw a kind of wobbly circle, it makes it into a more perfect circle if you hold down. Also, the ability to edit brushes would be handy. You can import brushes from Procreate, kind of like how I imported my file. So you just have to make sure you like the brushes before importing them, but being able to edit them directly would be nice. Also, I really hope they add a light mode so I can record the screen with my camera. So yes, Dreams is frustrating to learn how to use and is missing some needed features, but I do still really like it and see the potential. And I do want to say that I love that it's only $20 and that it doesn't have a subscription model like so many apps do nowadays. You just buy it and use it. It's so simple. Also, I love that Procreate Dreams is able to record motions that I make and that it translates them into animation for me, which I actually haven't really gotten to show you it yet, but I used it for animating the leaves. So to do this, we need to tap the circle, then I select my leaf, and it's hard to tell since you can't see me physically doing it, but I'm dragging down the leaf in a kind of floaty way with my pen. Then Dreams captures this motion and places the keyframes where needed. Next, I wanted to make the leaf rotate as it was falling, so I would grab the corner to rotate the leaf a bit, and then as it falls, I would lift up my pen, adjust my position a bit, and then make the leaf turn a bit again. I did have to try this a few different times to get the rotating part to go well. At first I was trying to do it all at once, but I found I got the best result if I kept kind of lifting my pen and readjusting as it fell. Thankfully, Dreams pauses the movement whenever I lift my pen. To make more leaves, I copied my leaf and basically did the same process again. I just had Dreams capture me moving the leaf around. Like I said, I really love this feature. It was a lot easier to do than placing a lot of keyframes myself and trying to get it to look how I wanted. I could just make it do what I wanted it to do. It's pretty neat. Oh, also, I added a third leaf that was really big. I thought maybe this would help add some depth. Also, I don't know if I hit a track limit or something, but when I was trying to add another track, it would give me this warning that it couldn't render some of my tracks. So I decided to just not add anymore since I wasn't sure how to fix it. Anyways, lastly, I wanted to add some snowflakes. This was very simple. I just drew some dots and then placed them at the top of my canvas and had them move down by placing another keyframe and moving them down. And with all of that, this animation is now done. So let's see how it turned out. It is a simple animation, but I am happy with it. It allowed me to get used to Procreate Dreams and get more used to it. And now that I do have a better idea on how to use Procreate Dreams, I feel like I could make another animation like this one without too much hassle. So maybe I'll do it again sometime soon. It's a fun way to bring a picture to life. Before we end, I want to say a super big thank you to my wonderful YouTube members and Patreon patrons for their support. It means so much to me. And thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!